What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So in just 4 days, we could see some major changes. And these major changes are going to happen on January 3rd. And I want to address what's going on because a lot of people have been asking, is there something that is going to change when we see Republicans take control of the House of Representatives? And the answer is yes. We're going to see a lot of changes. But are these bills going to pass? Well, that we don't know. But I will give you my prediction in just a minute. The first thing that I actually want to do is I want to show you a letter that was sent out by the House Republican Majority Leader, Steve Scalise. He's the new leader of the upcoming Congress. But when you look at this letter, let's look at this together. Now, here's a press release from his website, but in it, he talks about how he's going to have this floor schedule for the first 2 weeks of Congress. This is going to be big. This is the 118th Congress, all right? Now, he talks about how the first 2 weeks of the Republican majority, the House Republicans are focused on the issues facing the American people. He goes on and says the first scheduled bills of the 118th Congress are reflective on those concerns, such as addressing Biden's army of IRS agents, right? He also says skyrocketing energy costs, the border and crime crisis, the threat of China, and ensuring protection for life and those that stand for it. That's what he says. Okay. But what does this mean? What does this really mean moving forward? Well, what this means is Republicans are going to target the bills that Democrats already passed, right? We know that. They're also going to hold up any bills that Democrats want to pass and vice versa. Democrats in the Senate are going to hold up any bills that Republicans want to get passed in the House. Guess what? What I'm talking about right here, okay? This press release from Steve Scalise, what this is saying is they're going to vote on this. They're going to attempt to block these things. But guess what? It still has to go over to the Senate. It would still have to be passed by the Senate and go to President Biden's desk to get his signature on it. So even though, I'm going to outline everything that they're going to go over the first 2 weeks, but even though they're potentially going to pass some of these things, I'm a little skeptical that it goes much further than that. But let's get into what he actually says. He says right here, the American people spoke on November 8th and decided it was time for a new direction. The last 2 years have been tough on hardworking families as they have grappled with drastic increases in the cost of living, safety concerns with violent crime skyrocketing in our communities, soaring gas and home heating prices, and a worsening crisis at the southern border. Okay. He also says, in preparation for becoming the House Majority Leader next week, I have been meeting with our incoming committee chairs over the last month to start making plans for legislation on the House floor so we can hit the ground running in our first weeks in the majority. Okay. He also goes on to add, we do also recognize that it will take some time for our committees to organize and start moving legislation through regular order. But in the meantime, we will be bringing up meaningful, ready-to-go legislation in the House. Again, and he says these common sense measures will address challenges facing hardworking families on issues ranging from energy, inflation, border security, life, taxpayer protection, and more. We plan to bring to the House floor in the first 2 weeks of 2023. So these are coming up. All right. Now, let's address what he's actually going to talk about. Okay. What are the bills that he's wanting to pass? Okay. So let's look at this really quick. First one right here. This is the Family and Small Business Taxpayer Protection Act. And this bill rescinds tens of billions of dollars allocated to the IRS for 87,000 new IRS agents in the Inflation Reduction Act. Okay. The next one, establishing the Select Committee on the Strategic Competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party. This resolution establishes a bipartisan select committee on the strategic competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party. We also have the Strategic Production Response Act. This bill prohibits non-emergency drawdowns of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve without a plan to increase energy production on federal lands. This is a pretty big one because this was the reason why we saw so much oil coming from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve was not because it was an emergency. Well, it was to bring down prices. I'm glad it brought down prices. The only emergency now is we have a very depleted SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. So we have to do whatever we can to, obviously replenish that, which is what the Biden administration is doing now. So we'll see. The next one, Protecting America's Strategic Petroleum Reserve from China Act. This bill prohibits the Secretary of Energy from sending petroleum products from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to China. Yeah. Why are we going to make it easier for China? Let's make it easier on us, right? There's also the Prosecutors Need to Prosecute Act. This bill creates transparency in our criminal justice system by letting the public know how many cases prosecutors are declining to prosecute, the number of offenses committed by career criminals, and the number of criminals released. Now, what is this? Why would they even bring this up, right? Well, the Prosecutors Need to Prosecute Act, the reason why they're bringing this up is because you look at states like California, or just any state in general, where people are getting by just stealing stuff because prosecutors don't want to prosecute. They don't want to do the work, right? Or the person, they've already been convicted of something, or maybe they haven't, or whatever, right? And so this one, prosecutors need to prosecute. That's just what they're saying. And they just haven't done so over the past handful of years. The next one, expressing support for the nation's law enforcement agencies and condemning any efforts to defund or dismantle law enforcement agencies. Okay, there's Border Safety and Security Act. This bill addresses our crisis at the southern border by empowering the Department of Homeland Security to turn away illegal immigrants at the border if the Secretary of DHS does not have operational control. Okay. There's the Illegal Alien NICS Alert Act. This bill requires the National Instant Criminal Background Check System to notify U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and relevant local law enforcement when a firearm transferee is illegally present in the United States. The No Taxpayer Funding for Abortion and Abortion Insurance Full Disclosure Act. This is something that was talked about quite heavily a handful of months ago, but nothing really happened. But this bill makes permanent the long-standing Hyde Amendment, as well as similar provisions to provide federal funding for abortion and funding for any insurance plan that includes abortion on demand. Again, this was addressed in the past, so this is another thing that is being talked about right now. Then we also got the expressing the sense of Congress condemning the recent attacks on pro-life facilities, groups, and churches. This resolution expresses the sense of Congress condemning the recent attacks on pro-life facilities, groups, and churches. There's also the Born Alive Abortion Survivor Protection Act. This bill ensures that infants born alive after an abortion receives the same protection of law and degree of care as any newborn. Those are things that Republicans want to do. And as they say right here, these are ready to go pieces of legislation. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, this means Republicans are going to attempt to go and pass all these things. Okay, but does it mean they're going to get all these different things passed? Right? Do I think they're going to get all these things passed? Absolutely not. Are they going to get passed in the House of Representatives? Possibly. But is it going to do anything if they can't get it passed in the Senate? No. It's going to do nothing. Okay? It's going to pass in the House. It's going to go to the Senate. It's going to sit on Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's desk, and they're not going to do a single thing for it. But at the same time, be prepared because this is coming as well. Democrats, they got one additional seat in the Senate. They're going to use that additional power to try to get things passed, send it over to the House, and then pressure the House of Representatives to pass the same bill. So expect the first few weeks are going to be interesting. We're going to see a lot of different bills, a lot of different reports, but is anything actually going to pass? Honestly, I doubt it. But again, it will be interesting to see what certain lawmakers are proposing and who's really for the American people versus against us. So as soon as we get more information, I promise I will bring you all the latest news and updates. Again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.